under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Justin, thank you. You can see we have a large gallery tonight, you and Trace. It's all good. Okay, every year we vote to appoint a school physician. I'd entertain a motion to appoint Dr. David Belcher as a school physician for the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Brad,
Did you do it last year as well?
Yes.
we do it every year.
No, this particular doctor.
Yeah.
David.
Oh, do you mean the same guy?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. We have to do it every year. And I was just going to say that it's a yearly appointment. We usually do it this time of the year, so. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Also, we're going to hear a proposal to apply for membership to South Shore Education Collaborative, effective for, it's too late for this year, but it's going to be effective for the 2021 year.
Fiscal 2021. So Lauren Mathis has been doing some digging to see what we could potentially do for any kind of cost saving to help our special education budget. Contacted South Shore Collaborative. We are not members of that, so we pay a non-member price for our students over there. Right now, currently, we have 12 students over there, and we're paying about between $4,000 and $5,000 more as a non-member for our students to go there. Our proposal with school committee endorsement is to become members of the collaborative. There's no cost to us. It'll probably be another meeting for me, or we're going to recommend Mr. Boyce be another collaborative person. But I think it's a good move on our part. There's no detriment, and if we can get a tuition break by being a member of their collaborative, it's well worth it as our future going forward. So right now, in this year, if it was to go in right now, we'd save close to $55,000 in fiscal 20. So fiscal 2021, they meet as a board of directors in October. That's their first board meeting. So with the recommendation of this committee, we'll put it forth to their board. If they appoint or if they select us, it'll go for fiscal 2021.
I'd like to make a motion to join the collaborative.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Boyce?
So, Jeff, do you know how many member towns they currently have?
Of the South Shore Collaborative?
Yeah,
I don't.
okay,
Off the
that's
top.
fine. I mean, I want to do a little bit more
wait a minute.
research, but I thought it was excellent. How many students do we have attending?
12. We have 12. So, Mr. Boyce, to answer you, I do have that. The collaborative serves Braintree, Cohasset, Hingham Hall, Marshfield, Milton, Norwell, Quincy, Randolph, Situate, and Weymouth.
Awesome,
Fred?
So,
thank you.
Did they provide services at a set building, or is it throughout the different districts, and will we have the opportunity perhaps to host a program?
from what I understand, it's in their set building. They're located up off of Derby Street, up where the South Shore Orthopedics is, in that industrial area.
It's
They
a
have their
cut
building.
through. If you ever go from like
Yep.
the industrial area right out to Sports Center, Derby Street, it's on that cut through.
They've never reached out, and I know most of these districts, I was a member when I was in Situate, we sent kids to the collaborative. They house it pretty much there. If there was ever a need for space, we could have that conversation, but I don't remember too many kids going outside of South Shore. Their specific, different collaboratives do different things for different kids. South Shore Education Collaborative really focuses on the social emotional welfare of students. From some of the students that I've sent in the past, a lot of anxiety issues, eating disorder issues, that's their specialty. They're not a behavioral collaborative. North River Collaborative is our behavioral collaborative. They specialize in students with behavior plans. South Shore Ed does a little bit different with the social emotional piece. So being a member, I only see benefit to that, and they will provide PD as North River does for our teachers as well. So it's a win-win for us, and my question to Lauren is, geez, why didn't we do this in the past? So she asked the question and said, can you bring it to the committee now so we can get it on the agenda for the board in October?
I think it's a no-brainer in my mind.
The same services to the students.
Yes.
Yep, yes, at a
Savings
reduced
to us.
price.
Any other
Reduced
questions?
cost.
Reduced cost.
Just by approving and joining.
Correct.
Yeah, and I can tag on to that, thank you. That seems to be the basis for all of the budgeting that's put together, is member and non-member, and sometimes your non-member enrollment is higher than some of your member enrollments. So with Pilgrim area, Don, that's, and it's really neat. I mean, I love the way it's set up. It's 8 to 10 districts or towns, communities. And they all have a piece in the pie, and it's local, us as a local authority being at those. Jeff for the North River Collaborative. But yeah, it's definitely worth it.
Anyone else? Have a motion and a second, excuse me. All those in favor? Okay, before we go to the last item on the agenda, I'm just going to give a couple quick reports. Important dates to remember: Monday through Thursday, August 19th to the 22nd is new teacher orientation. Monday, August 26th, all teachers and instructional aides report for professional development. Wednesday, August 28th, 2019, all students pre-K to 12 return back to school. Wednesday, August 28th is a school committee meeting at 7 p.m. here in the library. And Monday, September 2nd, no school. Labor Day is observed. Also in your packet, if you look, you will see that we have some letters. One of them is from Rep. Cutler requesting a aid increase for Chapter 70. And I'll quickly read it. Dear Chair Page and Chair Lewis, thank you for continuing work on critical issue of education funding. As you and your committee members review requested proposed change for Chapter 70 Foundation budget formula, I respectfully request that any almost bill legislation include a minimum floor of $50 per pupil aid. And then it goes on to explain a bunch of stuff that's going on in school districts and why he would like it increased. And that was from Cutler. Also, we had a letter for Superintendent. Congratulations. We're pleased to inform you the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District has been awarded $60,000 for the Safer Schools and Communities Local Equipment and Technology Grant offered by the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security's Office of Grants and Research. Signed, Charles Baker and Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito. And I believe both Allison Sullivan and Josh Cutler were very instrumental in getting that pushed through.
Both of their aides and them, they made countless phone calls trying to keep us up to date, and because that was actually not run by DESE, it was run by the Department of Health and Human Security or Services, or a whole different department.
Yeah.
But yes, they were both very helpful.
Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, and of Grants and Research, so not out of DESE.
Yeah, so we will be giving a check back, or not needing money for some of the projects that were approved at town meeting.
Good. And last but not least, this is from Allison Sullivan, State Rep 7th District, Plymouth. I respect honorable conferees. I respectfully request that you increase the funding for regional school transportation to $75,856,506 as adopted by the Senate during budget deliberations. As a representative having Whitman-Hanson Regional in my school district, I see firsthand the financial struggles that affect every regional school district across the Commonwealth. By increasing the regional transportation funding, we would greatly aid Whitman-Hanson Regional School District and every other regional school district across the Commonwealth while planning for their up-and-coming school years. Sincerely, Allison Sullivan. So our state reps are working very hard to try and get as much as they can for Whitman-Hanson, and they've been very successful, and it's not easy to do. If you ever go up to the State House, you will see that it's difficult. And also, Josh is on a minimum increment. As I said, no school districts will provide the same level of service year after year while operating under such a fiscal constraint. The end result means cuts to school service or a greater burden falling on local property taxes. And it goes on to explain the budget formula and all of the above. And ultimately, he believes that we should move away from a strict dependence on enrollment data and provide all school districts across Mass a funding level that keeps pace annually with consensus revenue benchmarks, as we effectively do with unrestricted government aid. In the interim, offering greater flexibility with state mandates and more budget-making tools such as the ability to charge, non-residents for transportation costs will help alleviate this funding crunch. Again, thank you for your continuing work and kind considerations. Warmest regards, Josh Cutler. So we should be very proud of our state reps. They are working hard for us. Fred?
And, you know, Josh had been a champion trying to actually get the minimum pupil up to 100, as opposed to leaving it at 50. The conference committee finally came out with a budget last night,
Sorry. It's okay.
and I believe they voted on it today through the House and Senate and passed it on to the governor. Unfortunately, it did only contain the $30 minimum increase that were both in the House and Senate versions. His words unfortunately fell on deaf ears. But on the good side, the Senate's version contained an 82.5% reimbursement for regional transportation, and that part was adopted. So now it's off to the governor, and we'll see what comes up from there. Other than that, I didn't see any major highlights or lowlights in what came out.
Okay. So thank you to both of our reps. They're working very hard, and Senator Brady, I know, has been in there doing the same thing. So thanks to all three of them. Hopefully, maybe we'll get some better funding for Whitman-Hanson Regional School District. Last but not least, excuse me, on tonight's agenda is a budget discussion. Superintendent?
Leave the good one for me, right?
Of course.
So what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of an update on where we are in fiscal '20, because we have some movement in fiscal '20 since we met in June. We had a resignation of a building principal. My hope is that we will bring in an interim that will save us some money for fiscal '20 right up front. I don't assume I'm looking for a retired person, so the person's not going to come in at a principal salary. I was able to bring back a teacher to Conley School to reduce class size in the 5th grade. We had 2 resignations in the district, and by hiring low, we were able to bring back a full-time teacher for Conley. So there's no impact to the '20 budget, except for reallocation of funds within the district. We have noticed, since the departures of the people who left the district, in technology. One of the questions that was asked to me was, did the district actually lose people? Did we lose positions? We lost, after this brought back, we've lost 18 positions, one being the director of technology. We are uncovering a few things that will have financial impact to us in the future because some of our systems have been outdated and underserviced. We actually had a contractor come in today regarding our walkie-talkie system. That contractor has been looking to get into our district. We have a contract with them from the predecessor, Mr. Finley, years ago, and the contractor has been trying to get back in the system since to make sure we're utilizing our equipment appropriately. He met with George and the team today. We will have something moving forward. We've noticed, or we've uncovered that our phone system in the district is antiquated. Our answering services, our phone systems need to be updated. I'll bring this to you forward, but I want you to just hear that. And another issue George is going to speak of is we might have a financial cost in the district now because of some construction on Route 18 and Route 27. So, George?
Yeah, as you've seen, they're moving the poles on 18 and 27 in Whitman. As a result of that, you remember 7 to 9 years ago, we put in our own fiber optic network and we ran all our own wires on the poles so we could have the internet that we have. Well, as a result of, this is a Mass DOT project headed by a man named Chris Serra, who's the Mass DOT resident engineer. He is the person that has been in touch with all districts, all parts of town, and what's happening is they are there'll be approximately, I think, 12 poles that are affected with our wires. And if you've noticed, it's by Marcello's, it's by Cumberland Farms, it's by that new car wash place, it's on 18 and 27. Our stretch is just on 27, and it's basically the fiber optic that runs from here through Conley and the Whitman Middle School. And what usually happens when you move a pole or if a pole comes down is you have to go in order of the highest wire on the pole. So you go, let's call it electric, let's call it phone, let's call it Comcast, and then maybe we're 4. And then you have to, in order, move these wires to the pole behind it. What we're finding with this is that I'm learning a lot. What we're finding is that fiber optic is actually it's a glass cable.
Yeah.
And as a result, there is not, there's differing opinions with the vendors we're seeing as to whether we have to go back to a splice point and run new, what would be looser wire because the distance between the poles is so far, or if there's some where we can just take the existing wire, pay for it to be moved when it's our turn on the pole, and put it on the new pole. There are 3 companies on the state bid list that we've been in touch with. One of them has already given us a proposal. That proposal would have financial impact for the district and probably the town if it's capital. The other 2 are coming out tomorrow. The 3 companies are State Electric, Sully Mac, and Spectrum Integrated. A lot of these people, it seems to me like it's National Basketball Association. Coaches always stay around. These workers seem to always be around, but they work at different companies now. So some of the people, Sully Mac was the original person that did it for us when we did it 7 years ago. A lot of those same people are now with the other 2 companies. So they're actually meeting tomorrow to see if we can get 2 other bids, because anything over, we have to get a number of bids, so we're doing those 3 bids now. Basically, who's calling us back to move from there.
If they're on the state bid list, do we have to get, in other words, if they're already state approved, like SJ Services is on the state bid list?
Correct.
Do we have to get competing bids?
We have to get, to my understanding, we have to get competing bids because one of the first ones is already at $35,000. So we'd have to put out for an RFP if it's over $50,000, but until said time it gets to that, it's at $35,000. Now, there's also a lot of talk with these vendors saying, well, that, we'll check. We were on that bid list, we were on the original job. We're not sure. So I'd have more information next time or when it becomes available. But there is movement already with the other the other wire vendors that are on the pole. So I just wanted to bring that up to you. And there's also difference of opinion as to what time of year, what year the person who ran the tech department was made aware of this.
Just letting the committee know, we found out the 28th of June. So I would have brought this to you early on. So we found out the 28th of June. So we've been scrambling to make sure that the department is intact, and these things are coming up. So as we go through this new school year, you will probably be hearing some different things from us. We were at the Mass Superintendent's Conference last week. We did speak to a couple of vendors. We will probably move forward with an internal audit of our tech department before we make decisions about moving forward with a tech plan, to make sure we're utilizing funds efficiently and appropriately, and we have a plan. So that might be a cost to bring someone in to do an audit, but I think the department has never been audited financially, yes, but to a where we should be as a district with the systems that we have in place, no. That's both of not our wheelhouse. What I want to tell the committee and the public is we have some phenomenal people in the tech department who are whiz kids in what they do. So we're going to be up and running in August, and we're not going to see a delay in any type of service for staff, for parents, for kids. But we have to look at what we do systematically to make sure that we can be sustainable moving forward in the next 5 years, next 10 years. And we found some things that aren't critical, but could be critical within the next 3 to 5 years.
And I think it's also important that we're moving into a collaborative operation with them. We now have facilities, we now have technology, we now have transportation all together, and we are now opening it up so that we're having weekly meetings. We're having meetings to talk about job responsibilities. We're having meetings to talk about their own individual goals and the goals for their individual departments also. And that has never taken place. It was a very top-down and it was a very myopic view that individuals had in those certain roles. And we're approaching it like we do with teachers and when we were principals, is to make it more of a collaborative piece so that we can all be on the same page and we can move forward collectively. And I think what you're going to find is a more efficient and a better culture that's going to take place.
Mike?
Either of you, I know you just got thrown into this, but maybe, can you sum up why, like if I want cable or internet at my house, and they randomly decide to do Route 58 over. I don't pay to move telephone poles. Why are we paying? Because
Because-
that's something you can sum, I just don't
Yeah,
understand.
the best thing I could think of is because we individually own those wires. When we chose to do it, I'm going some on my memory from when Craig Finley was here, but when we chose to run our own, we didn't go with a subsidiary like Comcast or anything like that. We purchased our own wire, we purchased our spot on the pole, and as a result of that, that is now our responsibility to move it.
Is that normal? Like, is that?
Is that our infrastructure, just
Yeah.
like in the schools?
Yes, that's,
Yes,
and
I would
that,
guess
yeah.
so.
Chris?
So I like the idea of doing an audit for utilization purposes. If it's not already included, can we consider doing something around the cybersecurity side as well, just to make sure?
It'll
that-
be everything.
Okay.
Everything that we do as far as what we would determine as technology, and that's
Excellent.
safety, security, that's internet safety, that's our systems that are in place from soup to nuts. I mean, we found out that some of our security systems, our ID swipes, are used by the government.
Same system.
State of the art. We only use 5% of that to
Good,
the
right.
capacity that we can.
I will say this, and I think you should feel comfortable in that. The people that are in there are vastly, they know their craft very well from a technology standpoint. And I think this is the first time they're actually having some input into what they feel is the next thing we should do, or what they feel is things that we can do within our district to become more efficient. And what we're finding is we're giving them a voice, and we're trying to do it as, we're finding that we have untapped resources that we never had at the level of maybe central office or that communication. But yeah, that's also going to be included as to, I want a state of the state, where we're at
Right.
as far as technology.
And the reason I ask is municipalities, I think a lot of you follow this, but if you haven't, municipalities are oftentimes targeted just because of some of the systems they have. So a lot on the financial services and on the business side, there's a lot of pretty significant protocols that are in place, but sometimes on the municipal side, that's where people come in, they take everything over, and then they just send you a.
I think you should also know Tyler Industries, which is the mother company of our Munis, is, we've already met with them twice, and we have them back for now, 5 more sessions, so that we can make sure that whoever had access to that doesn't, and now we can recreate in-house the overall management of it, so that we can then create the roles that specific people need in carrying out of their duties. Yeah.
Part of their report to us was we use 10% of the system. We pay for 100%, we're using 10%. So our goal this year was to look at things. This year will be an implementation of making sure that we're as strategic and as frugal, and we're getting the best bang for our buck in simple terms as we are, and that audit should help us. We didn't think of that audit until the person left. We were down the conference, and different vendors were talking to us, and even as far as E-rate, we're using 50% of our E-rate. That question came to us, why? And we had no answer. So we're going to find out why. So all through the course of the next school year at meetings, you'll hear different bits and pieces of where we're moving in a positive direction. And sometimes if I come to you and say, we have to drop 10 grand on this internal audit, it's probably going to save us 150 or 200,000 in the future, but it's a spend to save. And right now, we really need to look at ourselves, and we need to have an expert come in that's non-objective, that can give us a real answer, and that's what an audit will do. So we're looking at a couple of vendors. We're going to be at another conference this week. We'll identify a few more vendors, and we'll be discussing with you throughout the summer. So that's the tech piece. George had the news around the fiscal, the 2020 budget right now. Any questions around fiscal 2020 that I can answer before I give you some brief numbers about 2021?
Fred's got a
No,
question.
but I did have, following up on the audit, and I think it's a great thing to do. But I'd like to see if we can put a plan together to audit every other faction or department as well. Okay, we found this in technology. Could there be something, do facilities, do business services?
Yeah, I think we'd move down. I think it's a great idea. I will say, from now on, from this perspective, the one we know the least about is technology, so that's the one we're looking at first.
Start there,
Yeah,
but have a
right.
plan in place, and
Yeah.
also, perhaps someone incorporating that, an efficiencies expert.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that way there, if we can fire on better cylinders.
That's what, yeah, exactly.
I know I did have conversation with Chad, this probably goes back a couple of years ago, and I don't know the answers that I received. The Munis system that we own, can any of it be used for any of the towns? Because the towns are envious that we have Munis, and there could be some modules that could be incorporated, and I think the cost I was told was like $75,000. I don't know that to be a fact.
I think as we get into Tyler, the company, we'll find out more.
If you guys could keep that in
I
mind, 'cause
mean,
if there'd be something
if we
could
can
do for
job share with the
towns.
towns, and that can go for multiple areas. I mean, we used to work with the towns in technology.
Yeah.
I mean, that is in the past, but that's something that as we grow and grow a partnership with the towns, and that's what I mean, Dawn and I were at a meeting tonight, which we'll talk about in a minute, about partnering with the town of Whitman, that's something we can look at. So Munis is a pretty, I was very wary, because it's very entailed, and just as you, George and I are plugging through, we're finding different things that we can do, even utilizing different systems that we cost out already, you know? So once we become proficient with that, which will be sooner than later, we might have some savings in some of the systems that we already contract out for work orders and things like that. So as we become more proficient with the systems, absolutely. And if we can expand and we can assist Hanson or Whitman in different things and job share, there's a potential there.
Before we move on, Jeff, I just want to touch on the jobs. We've all had some discussions with people about 19.2 positions, and you just reported to us as 18. I just want to put in the fact that sometimes when you eliminate a job, the person applies that you eliminated the job from, applies for another job that's posted in the district. That position is still eliminated. You do not have it any longer. The advantage of hiring somebody within is, when you eliminate that, if that person goes out on unemployment for a year or two, you're paying it. If they take another job in the district, it saves that amount also.
Correct.
Because some people have said, well, you didn't eliminate, you shuffled. You know what I'm saying?
So one of the positions, and it's going to have an impact within the community, is we eliminated the person who was the assistant in facilities who ran school building use. That person was on, the schedule was 8 to 4, 5 days a week, and that person would sometimes work weekends and overtime. We eliminated that position. There will now be, we have one of the people in technology picking up a piece of that.
Part-time.
But it's part-time, it's not a full job, so we kicked them a couple of bucks to make sure that we have somebody manning that, because we do bring in revenue through building use, and it's a part of our community effort, but there will be hours that person will be available. And it'll be a call, leave a message, and that person will respond back. So the voicemail will be there, hi, you've reached so-and-so building use, please leave a message, yada, 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 and he'll get back to you. It's not gonna be an instantaneous, hey, we need this tomorrow. We eliminated a position there that was cost savings in this FY20 budget. So the best we can do is that. We will try to improve our building use piece, and don't be surprised that come fall, I approach you with changing our fee structure for building use. I'm looking at different schools that are our size right now and what they do for a fee structure to make sure that we're competitive and not, I don't mind being a great resource for our folks in town, but not for profit folks who come in from different communities. So I'm going to come to you probably October, November with a recommendation for a fee structure in our building use to make sure that we're sustained there and we're not being taken, I don't want to say taken advantage of, but we're competitive with our buildings. We were the first with a new building in AC in our Performing Arts Center 15 years ago. That was great. But there are a lot of other communities now that have that, and either their fees are higher than ours, so we want our repeat clients, our repeat customers, but I don't, also, some of our customers are imposing themselves and disrupting our school day because they're repeat customers. Our students should come first, and that's what we'll move forward with building use in the future. So as we talk building use, that position was eliminated. We still have building use, but we don't have a person doing it. It's an offshoot in athletics, it's an offshoot in central office, and it's an offshoot in operations right now, so.
Just trying to remember how we did it last time, if it came out of policy subcommittee.
It's policies. So it's policies. I haven't even looked at our policy yet, but I've asked Christine, I've asked Michelle to reach out to other communities, one being Marshfield, I was just there at an event, and I watched their structure. It's different than ours. So I want to see the schools that are our size, how they bring people in and utilize the facility here.
And we're also trying to figure out what is the profit for it, because traditionally, what we've looked at is, yes, this is the money taken in, but we haven't done a very good job of record keeping to say, but what about the 37 hours that the kid in technology had to put in over the weekend for that? So where does it all flesh out is one of the things we're really looking at this year.
We don't want to lose money in building use. And that's, and it's not money going out the door, but it's services provided. Even to our summer services and people that are using the buildings now, we're not seeing a break even with some of the groups that come in and use over the summer because we're not efficient in how we cost out the custodial staff in hours. So there's a lot of little pieces here that over the course of this year, we'll bring out to you folks. One of the ideas we talked about building uses, are we not using our buildings well? Can we solicit some of our secondary institutions, Bridgewater State, and one being to run adult classes or an offshoot of Bridgewater State or Massasoit in our high school at night? Marshfield does that at night. They have an offshoot of Massasoit. Now, I don't know if Massasoit folks, because we're pretty local, but if you can take a class in whatever, in accounting, in room 201, and you live in Hanson instead of driving to the Massasoit campus, and it's a win-win for both of us, that's what we're going to look to do. We don't want to displace our teachers necessarily, but the building, although the high school's open 24/7, we might be able to utilize it in a better way to bring in some revenues to offset some of the upkeep of the building and the facilities. So,
Anyone else?
so briefly, thanks. So briefly, it's the challenge of trying to put together budget projections for 2021. When we closed 19 on Friday, and the governor's budget's still not signed, I'm just giving you some rough numbers in what was asked around contracted services, custodial, things like that. So this isn't set in stone necessarily, but they're rough estimates. And I can send this out to you, but I just want to read the numbers. So I'm looking at custodial services, SJ contracts up 29,000 for 2021. Smart Center is 0. There is no increase for 2021. First student increase will be 41.6 for 2021. If we want to change our start times, it will be an upfront cost of $440,000, which will be reimbursed the following year at the tune of, if that stays correct, at 82%. But it will be an upfront cost in this fiscal budget, and we won't see it until the January of '22, I think. Full day K, if we want to put into this projection, is 710,000. Our numbers in kindergarten are up this year, so we actually added a class, but it's a full day class that we took in revenue for. Gas and electric are going to be up about 83,000. Trash is going to be up about 7,500. As you know now, we have an outstanding water issue, a water bill, that I've sent to our attorney. Both attorneys that are working on contracts, Andy Waz, one, and Cliff, I got his name down somewhere.
The water bill was 330,000, wasn't it, Jeff?
Correct. The problem outside of the outstanding bill, I have no idea what water costs for this school, for this building, water and sewer right now. We don't have a current number of a projection. So I can't give you a projection, yes, Fred.
If they're telling us that the bill was off by 330,000 over so many years, shouldn't they be able to tell us how much water that this building is using?
The last bill was incorrect as well. So as of May, when I had the conversation, they were not able to. FY '20 was already done. So I'm waiting. I don't know, I'm guessing it's going to be $20,000 more than we budgeted, give or take. Maybe a little more, but we haven't budgeted for that. So
They're gonna replace the meters?
How do we know that their 330 is accurate then?
We don't.
And we don't. And that right now, I don't want to go too deep.
Right,
because
the memo on the bill said human error,
I
the reason
sent-
for the bill.
Sent everything to the attorney's office for them to go through, from soup to nuts, everything that was presented to me, including the bill that we received last Monday. Great to have that bill. So water, we're not sure. We're looking at approximately an increase of $1.1 million in salaries for next year. We're looking at an additional $100,000 in our curriculum, because we're going to add an English program. And I'm level servicing SPED for this year. So our rough estimates, and that's including the 440 and the 710, I'm looking at close to a $2.5 million increase in the budget. If you were to take away the 440 and the 710, we're looking at an increase of 1.349. Again, rough numbers there. I think SPED is going to level off. I really do. My gut tells me that. However, today we did have an issue with a kid in school here today, in our extended school year, who assaulted a teacher, who might be in out of district at this point. I'm not sure. So that's that tough number to go back. But I'm very confident in our new out-of-district coordinator and Lauren to make sure we level off our SPED costs. So I included the 710 and the 440 just to have a general idea. I think the staffing increases are right ballpark between 2.5% and 3%, depending on salaries. The teacher's contract is 2%. But we don't include buying things out or retirement benefits in that 2%, so we rounded up a little bit to around 3%. So I'm looking at, again, the 2.5 is a rough number. The 1.350 is another rough number. It doesn't include anything in insurances. It doesn't include any revenues. But it's a rough number that the committee kind of wanted to see where we were at. The other challenge with staffing is we haven't finished fully hiring for this year. And some of those numbers in that 1.1 are people in our grants. And the caution, Christine put them all in the grants because we still don't know what's coming for grants. If a $50,000 salary is reduced, X, Y, and Z. So everything that we have here is here, and that includes our grant folks.
Fred?
The 1.1 salaries, is that all units?
That's everything.
And
That's
does-
every person in this
Does
district.
that take into consideration steps and lanes as well?
That's everything right now. That's all people. That's an increase there. So again, trying to put this together, and Dawn and I just were at a meeting for the Whitman Override Committee. I got sworn in today at 2 o'clock. The Override Committee talked, and one of the things that has come out is that Whitman wants a budget, at least a fiscal 2021 budget sooner than later. Our next meeting's going to be August 12th, so they can start talking about budgets. I said at best I can do is a level service budget with our increases. The challenge, and I brought to the committee, is that I don't want us to be level service if we're looking at moving forward. And members of the committee were part of that. So I will present the level service piece of it. We'll also present the 710 and the 440 going forward. There's some discussion about non-mandated busing and things like that at the committee level. But those are the numbers that I can give Mr. Lynham as a department head. I wanted to share them with you first. And they are really rough estimates. I think if we move forward with the goal of doing something like this as the start of the fiscal year with a budget, it'll help us more. If my brain is, okay, as soon as we close 19, we're already into we close that fiscal year, we're already into the fiscal year before, it'll be helpful. It's been difficult as a department, central office, business, to lose a person to retirement and not replace, to lose folks in technology and not replace, and do some of the budget things right now, because we're scrambling to make things happen right now. So I will have better numbers, I think, as we progress into August and September, as we move into our budget conversations in October, November, and for our budget presentation, depending on when the committee wants that budget presentation.
Fred?
When you present that committee our next budget, I know myself, I would appreciate if we could include in there the dollar amount of what we lost from last year to this year, just in level services.
Absolutely.
I don't want to see us go backwards from where we were from last year, and I understand it was fiscally impossible for us to have gone forward, but the amount of money that we were off from last year, I think should be added on, to that and any numbers that we're given. And then also, I'd love to see you folks work on our plan and show how we want to advance. Because to stay still and tread water,
That was my comment at our meeting today, is that we're not, if we're going to start planning 5 years from now, I want to keep moving forward. I spoke to 2 superintendents at the conference 2 weeks ago, and I said, how do you present your budget, just to help me, because I always seem to be regressing. We try to hit here and we go back, and we're not comfortable, that's a bad use of words. We end up managing with this number. And the superintendent from Marshfield said, I proposed my level service budget, and even every 5 years, I add a process, a program of something that the leadership team decides that they want to move forward, and we present that as part of our budget. So every year, it's moving forward. Every year, there's something moving forward. 2 of us in the past 10 years, even though we've wanted to push a little forward, we've always ended up maintaining. Now, I'm not going to say that in 14, 15, 16, we did include staff. I will caveat that we also brought in school choice with revenue. This year, we're still maintaining revenues, but we had more students than ever go out for school choice. And they're going out earlier. I'm not losing kids in 7th and 8th grade to school choice. I'm losing kids in kindergarten, and they're staying. So we're still bringing in revenue, which is great for us, but the movement is different, and I'm afraid if we don't continue to move forward, and we talk about financials, and we talk about what we can add in the elementary schools and the middle schools, as far as program, as far as art and music and things that are outside of reading, writing, and arithmetic. We've lost foreign language in the middle. We don't even talk about it in the elementary. And if I'm gonna choice out, and I can go somewhere for free in kindergarten, and we looked at our competitor, which is Rockland right now, where they bring in school choice in K, and it's free, and they're adding to their budget, and their budget is increasing, and their program is becoming better in certain areas than ours, so.
That's, I've been waiting. Full day K, highest priority on the list. We are going to start seeing lost revenue for that one reason. We're gonna start losing people. Number 2, state's gonna make out a mandate.
Yep.
Okay? If they make it a mandate, then we're really behind the 8 ball, so we should be ahead of it. Get this project, get it implemented, beat it out before we're the last ones in the state to be in a moronic situation. This should have been done years ago, and we have to really force it. Because that school choice, the more people we're gonna lose, like you said, we're gonna hit rock bottom in 3 or 4 years.
That's part of the school choice, and I think it's important, because I've heard when we talk about an override, first thing somebody says, why don't you cut sports at the high school? Okay, if I were to threaten to cut sports, and it'd be a threat, if your children were gonna be freshmen, and there was a threat on the table, and your kid's a basketball player, soccer player, swimmer, and they could go to East Bridgewater, West Bridgewater, Bridgewater, Raynham, Abington, Rockland, to say of those few, and you were nervous about that, you might enroll that child in that. And the revenue I would lose in just choice money going out the door at a $5,000 to $7,000 student wouldn't be worth the $280,000 to $300,000 that's in the LEA budget for athletics. Most of our athletic budget is from revolving and gates. We are one of the lowest as far as what we present. So it's a conversation I don't want to have to say, cut athletics, because people will come to the polls and vote for an override. I want people to come to the polls and vote for an override because they want a better school system, not because they're threatened. And the fact that if I threaten, committee threaten, and there are parents on the fence, if they decide to go somewhere else, we're going to lose that revenue, and they might not come back. So it's a dual-edged sword. Once we've accepted choice, I think that's a good thing for our district as far as diversity, as far as different students, and it was a revenue builder. As Mr. Cullity said, I'm concerned about the loss of choice, not to charter. People go to charter for a different reason, although they started with kindergarten, but those are fewer. I'm seeing the exit to the full-day K programs and I'm seeing the exit to the online programs, Tech Academy. I think we can recover those. Those are just conversational pieces. But I am concerned about the loss of revenues, or the loss, my expenditures are gonna go up because of choice, because we're not offering things. And even this year, when we talked about our pink slips and our layoffs, we needed to do that. But I didn't want to have the conversation in December, because people were making choices about where they were gonna send their students to school. And if we talk in January and February about massive layoffs and massive cuts in program, and they don't come to fruition, people have already made up their mind about where their child's gonna go to school, and that mindset is there. So I'm very cautious about saying, we're gonna do this or we're gonna cut this without really doing it. And one of the things, as the committee directs, if you make that decision, we will follow through on that. We're only gonna present to this committee what we think is in the best interest of the students, both in the short term and the long term. And the loss of revenue to school choice, when choice came in 14 here, or 13 here, EB didn't have it, Abington didn't have it, Rockland didn't have it. It was BR and West Bridgewater. Now all the other schools, the only border school is Pembroke that doesn't have choice at this point, but don't be shocked that they don't bring up choice at some point. Their revenues are worse than ours. My tax rate in Pembroke is the lowest in the area. So don't be surprised if that doesn't come. And my concern to the committee is that Pembroke has the state-of-the-art national champion band program, K to 12. So if they open up to choice, and we can't be competitive with our students there, we're gonna lose there too. So we have to start talking about where we wanna be in 5 years, not just bringing back level service. What can we add? What can we move forward in our academic program? George has done a wonderful job making sure we have a math program that's competitive with our fellow districts. We're piloting in an English program. We haven't had program content in place for curriculum in the elementary since 2005.
2002 was the last time for ELA.
So we've been negligent. So we need to make sure that we're competitive, and we've still done a hell of a job making sure our kids walk across the stage. But as this school is about kids, teachers, and people, but it's also a business, and my concern is I'm going to lose people to the opposite business because they can get a better product.
No,
And
that's
what I wanna
that's
keep
my
talking
major
about.
concern is, we've been walking around kindergarten way too long. The town's gonna have to wake up, realize this is what's happening, we're losing it. And then, our schools were great, I can't say we're great anymore, we're pretty good, and we're just going down. And the more you go down, the more these people, I'm pulling my kid out, because I've thought about it on my child. It's like, we're just not getting,
We're also seeing the ripple effect in staff for the first time this year.
Yes.
yeah.
We've
Well, that's
lost
the whole
staff
thing.
who
Like
are
you
looking
mentioned,
towards
it's a business,
places,
and as a
right.
business, we're not doing a good job.
So when I say I was able to bring back a teacher, because I had 2 resignations, and one was because he got a pink slip. So, yeah, it was a higher priced person, but got a pink slip and said, is this position gonna be here next year? And the honest answer was, I don't know, so he took a job somewhere else. So and that's the first time, and the ripple effect on the culture of the kid, when we talked about that, lost a teacher at Whitman Middle School who was a valuable teacher, but she decided to go to a different district that could be more sustainable. So, yeah, George is right, we're noticing an effect on the staff as well. So if we can get the numbers out there, the committee that we have in Whitman, it met for the first time tonight, and I will report out every time we meet, because I think it's important that the entire committee hears what we do over there. But I want to bring that out, that my concern over a 5-year period, and the town of Whitman wants a 5-year projection. We can give them a 5-year projection on where we're at, even costing out salaries and things. But I was thinking about this weekend. 5 years ago, there was a real push to put a device like Mr. Howard has in every kid's hand and bring it home. 1-to-1 was the big thing. Duxbury spent a lot of money on Macs. And I remember talking to Andrew Stevenson, how are you rolling this out? How is this? Every kid's just getting one, bang, 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 bang. They're regressing. They don't do Macs anymore. They do Chromebooks, but they're not as they're not as used as everybody thought they were gonna be. So what I don't wanna do is project. I wanna move forward, but I don't wanna project in such a way that it's gonna be deficient, we're gonna be deficient in the future. So that's the problem in education. Things change so greatly over time that the hot thing in education is 1-to-1, this is great. And then after 3 years, folks, the teachers start saying, we don't utilize this well. Hey, let's just put put everything up on the board, and the device is a note-taking device. That's why in our brief technology plan, we'd like to put carts in every classroom so the students can use the technology as appropriate for the teacher, and it's not a directive that they bring it home. So those are the things that we have in play, but I just wanted to share with the committee, since this was a budget time, to kind of get on my soapbox a little bit about where we want to be. And as Mr. Cullity said, we're regressing, we maintain, we do a hell of a job getting kids across the stage. We get to do a great job. I think we've done a better job of preparing them for the world of work, not just the world of college, but the world of college is shifting, and I'd like us to be more prepared to get kids into the world of work with some training here as well. And when you're just maintaining and regressing, you're not bringing in programs like robotics, so a student can say, geez, I really like this. I just want to go to Massasoit and finish that up, or I want to go into the tech field. So this is what we'll be talking about in the future, moving forward in the school year as well.
Twofold question. Number one, and I'd love to see if we could be doing something vocational-wise. I know we've had the discussions to add some VOTEC type of programs. I think that would maybe align with some of what you're saying. Number two, have they talked at all about structure, as how is an override would be structured? And number three, we do have a partner in Hanson. Perhaps we should invite them to our next.
I think our next school committee meeting will be in August. We're meeting on the 12th. We didn't talk about structure. We just kind of talked about goals today, where we're at, but really didn't solidify any structure today. Elected a chair, a vice chair, a recording secretary. Mr. Lanham explained where we were at, but it was an hour of just kind of feeling each other out, seeing where we're at. There were no budgets to put forth. Nobody put forth any numbers. I think that'll be some meat and potatoes the next meeting, and I can report out on the 28th when we have our next school committee meeting.
Well,
Did
Jeff-
talk about, the difference between a menu option and a tier option, and the concept of residents picking and choosing which department they want to support in an override versus a tier being just a dollar amount, and being careful with that language, right?
Correct. And the committee didn't vote on that or anything. It was just
No,
talked
a
about
discussion,
the multiple different types of
Override.
overrides that could happen.
You know, I'm almost afraid to not try and take, and as I've said in the past, the bull by the horns ourselves, to control what we're doing for the schools. I don't want to see us, pitting one department against another, but we also have a partner in Hanson, and I think that we have very specific needs. And I don't know if they'd have two questions on the ballot, this is the schools, this is the general government.
We've had no question, I have had no conversations with any select people in Hanson or any FinCom people since the last budget cycle. So that would be, I think, as we move forward in this, depending, I think, on timeline in Whitman, those conversations in Hanson should happen sooner than later about where they're at in our proposed budget.
15 years ago, John McEwen and I, well, it's probably 14 years ago, Michelle, this building's 14 years ago we moved in. We were sitting up in his office and we talked about, and John would say to me, Bob, this can't be run like a business. Education is not going to end up being a business. And I said, well, it can run business-like because there are offshoots of an education such as cafeterias and maintenance and all of the above. But he was saying to me, God rest his soul, he hopes education will never become a business. I said, in 10 or 15 years, it's going to change because of the demographics of how people send kids to schools. And school choice has turned it into a public school that has to be competitive with other public school towns, because years ago, think about this, well, I'm the oldest one in the group, so the parents would never send a kid to another town to go to school. It was unheard of. It just, now they're going everywhere to go to school. So the truth is, public education is going to have to get competitive, as Dan said. It's going to have to be recognized more business-like.
And to that point, I recognize what we do with the budget in 3 areas: academics, athletics, and the arts. And you talked about athletics, And it's mostly self-funded with user fees and gate fees, and our academics has suffered. And I know our enrollment is down, and I feel that some parents are choosing other schools for academics, because unfortunately, you know, and the arts as well.
Absolutely.
You know, so when I see full day K, certainly necessary. Even the busing, you know, that was a sacrifice in the start time that students have made in high school for all these years. They've come at that ungodly early hour. But you just go back to the elementary level, you know, no certified librarian still, no real technology teacher, where we've got a math curriculum coming in. Reading curriculum is coming. Middle school, foreign language, world language, enrichment programs for middle school students who are in 5th or 6th grade, but their reading, you know, or their capacity is learning is a higher level. I know students in middle school can't take all related arts because we have a 5-day schedule. You know, they're missing out on some. I have a student who, you know, had music last year, didn't have art. We just don't have that capacity. And then at the high school, limited technology, only 2 tracks of learning. Some is academic, or you go right up to the AP. You know, we should be academic, honors, AP for all grades. A band director, wasn't that something Dr. Whitner talked about years ago? So these are all the things.
It's all
Yeah.
the things, if we want a
know.
true inclusive education for our kids, we're missing out. And we need to do better. And I agree with you in the business piece of it. The business is our kids. We get them for 12 years. And we'd like to give them the most inclusive education so that if you find your passion, and your passion is the flute, you should be able to take the flute in 3rd grade and be able to do that all the way through. Or if your passion is foreign language, and just because you were immersed in Spanish in 4th grade, you actually heard it and like, wow, I really buy into that. We have students that have taken those opportunities, but we've regressed in certain areas. So we will prioritize as we move forward. And it's not all going to be fixed in a year or two, but if we can start talking about how we move forward every year, and little by little, I felt like we moved forward 15, 16, 17, and I think we hit a roadblock last year. And we need to figure out how we don't hit that roadblock and regress back. Our enrollment is declining in certain areas, and it's not because of choice, it's because of parents aren't having 4 or 5 kids anymore. We will recycle those teachers. What I'd like to see is if our enrollment is down, instead of having to, because the budget says we don't replace that retirement, I can replace that retirement because of enrollment, I can replace that with a band person or an art person. This high school, and Dr. Whitner used to say, there's 1.2 it's a 1.4 teacher for the high school of 1,200 kids. Pembroke has 3 full-time high school music teachers in their high school. That's where they decided to put their money. We have 2 art teachers doing multiple things. So if we want our kids to do that inclusive education, we need a little bit more. Doesn't mean we have to hire 14 new people, but we need a little more. Middle schools are suffering right now, and that's the area that you're hooking students in. Elementary school is difficult, but there's still a lot going on. You're in one classroom, you multitask and do different things. Middle, you start to shift. If you're not getting, pre-algebra in 8th grade and you're bored, we don't have shop anymore. You can't just go hammer a nail or get that out, and you're in a PE class of 38. So we need to do better for those students. We've provided the social emotional piece of it. I think that's a step in the right direction, huge. We will see better, but it's now the other resources that we've cut and saying, look, if you're not that true academic, we need something for you to do. So we'll be preaching that too as we move forward. And overall, I thought the meeting today at Whitman was positive. I think it's a good group of people. There's some town folk on it. There are department heads, there's select people, and FinCom people. So I thought it was positive. I'll bring back information as it moves forward.
Jeff, can you get a number from DESE, statewide, what school districts are off? It might help us. In other words, are all school districts off 4% in enrollment? Are they off 3%? You know
So you're looking at an enrollment, trends of
Because you talk
enrollment.
about families having 6 kids and 4 kids, and we see that. If we had a state number
Yep.
of approximately where it was off, then we could compare it to where we're off and see if that enrollment has some sort of percentage to do with what we're not offering properly, such as you mentioned Pembroke having a world-class band.
Right.
You know, we could compare the numbers if we, because other than that, if you'd say we're off 5%,
Yeah, what is it relative
it
to
relative-
others?
yeah, you got to compare apples to apples and see what other schools are off, because they've all got to be off a certain percentage
I think
because
so.
people are having less children.
Mr. Lineham had my heart in my throat because he said 80 units were going to come online this summer in Whitman. And my first thing is, if it's 80 units coming online, where are they? And how many kids are going to be in those? Because we need to know. They won't be until next year. They're going to be developed over the next 12 months. But those could have an impact in our schools. You know, we've cut in different areas based on enrollment, but if we add 80 units at 2 kids per for Conley and Duval, our numbers shoot, you know? So those are the things that, I think the relationships we have developed, George and I, with the towns too, looking at trends and looking at enrollments are helpful. And that's why knowing Chief Greno, Chief Thompson, when developments are coming in, they know when things are going up too, just so that we can start projecting, all the new single-family homes are coming in, the new townhomes are coming in. That's important for us to do, so as we move forward in our budget process as well.
Fred?
Seeing that we're not going to be meeting before your next meeting with the Budget Override Committee, I guess, what I would hope you would take us, again, as I said, the strategic plan, and that we utilize, I think we only get one shot, one bite at the apple, and we utilize a number that's going to bring Whitman-Hanson back to the success level, at least, you know, listening to everyone. I don't know if you'd be looking for a motion or just a consensus, Mr. Hayes. You know, that we give a number, if we're going to have an override, that it's a number that's going to restore our budget. I'm not saying that we have to be the highest budget in the state or even at the, gosh, if we were in the middle, it would be incredible. But to bring back the services and to be able to do the job and provide the education that the kids deserve.
So I'd like to put that together for the next school committee meeting, which is on the 28th. So that'll give us some time to work with our building principals as well. And I think that's the challenge right now is everybody's in and out. We're going to be away with them on Wednesday. We're doing a dual effort there at the principals conference. We're going to have our retreat. We're taking them away for a couple hours on Wednesday so we can talk about our strategic plan, because we've been able to fulfill a lot of the elements of our plan right now. So we have to develop a newer plan, and that's one of the pieces going forward. Where do we want to be in the next 5 years as we put it in writing in our plan? And I'll bring that information to you folks for the 28th. I don't believe our committee's going to set a number on the 12th, so I'd be more comfortable bringing that to the committee on the 28th.
One second, Chris. That was my question. I mean, I don't foresee this committee coming on the 12th and moving with any of that. I see that 2 or 3 or 4 meetings away. They may step it up.
Correct.
But I mean, today you had kind of an organizational meeting. It's a little premature to think that committee's going to be doing it on the 12th of August, I would think.
My
I could be wrong.
misinterpretation, I thought you were being asked for a budget for the.
We're being asked for a budget for fiscal '21, not even an operational or any override. We're looking at a true operational budget for fiscal '21. That's what Frank is asking from the department heads now. So that can help the committee then see what is out there and where do we want to go. That's the task.
Chris?
Just in the spirit of communication, I know one of the things that we, I think, collectively all struggled with is last year, I think we got feedback from the Hanson selectmen was going in front of them and presenting the budget. So can we make sure we have, whether it's a quick letter, just making sure that they're aware of what's going on in Whitman? I'm sure they are.
Sure.
But formally aware of what's going on, what you're doing, and that you
Absolutely.
stand ready to meet with them whenever they want. I think this is what we're all, we don't want to
I agree
get
with
way ahead over here and then
Right,
fall
correct,
way
and
behind on
catch
the
up.
other side. So.
I agree. I remember that feedback.
So if we can just get something out, that would be wonderful.
Because, I mean, it's got to, for it to do any type of, have any type of motion, it's got to have both towns.
Yeah, and it might just explain the process as to what you've met. We have some rough numbers you're happy to present if and when they're ready.
Absolutely.
Why don't we think about on our meeting, the 28th, of inviting them all? Make sense?
Yeah, I mean, they gotta
Invite
get
the
notified.
finance committees, invite the board of selectmen, invite the whole override
First
committee.
day of school, man, that's All right.
Well, I'll get it. But, and remember that my evaluation has to come in that meeting as well.
Yes.
That's all right, we can do that. Yeah, and keep in mind, what do we have outstanding for that, Michelle?
Everybody has to submit their eval,
Yeah,
hopefully by like August 10th, and then we'll have it ready for the 28th meeting.
yeah, that's another thing that, please try to have that evaluation into Michelle, so her and I can calculate it and move forward with it. And then we'll go over it, we can go over it that night. It's not as cumbersome, anywhere near as cumbersome as what we used to do.
And that, just to, for you folks, that helps me put goals together for the next year. So I need that feedback so I can put goals in October. And I did present at MASS on the superintendent's evaluation.
ask you that.
And there is a new rubric that's coming out August 15th. It should be easier and easier for school committees to follow that rubric. So they're releasing that. The presentation went well. Bob and I actually were on camera doing a few things about the process, and I got to serve on a panel with superintendents. I found that superintendents aren't really fun people. They don't really laugh a lot. I told a couple of jokes and nobody got it. So luckily I was at Carla Bear on my left. She was laughing. It was great. But I appreciate you folks evaluating, because there are a number of superintendents in the Commonwealth that never get an evaluation. So they don't have any focus in how they do their goals. So I appreciate that eval, and your eval will help me develop goals for the district and for myself moving forward.
It is amazing, but the numbers around 43% don't get it done. Right around.
Correct.
It was just, because the old process was ridiculous. I mean, unless you walked around the superintendent for a month, you couldn't answer the 24. Fred, you were involved with the 24 questions, the 26 or 8. 90% of them you couldn't even answer.
No.
It was a waste of time.
I know Ruth was mad at me one year.
You've been, I don't want to go into that. Just one? Any more budget issues?
I'm good. Thank you.
Any questions for the superintendent or the assistant superintendent before I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, Jeff, could you email the numbers?
Yeah.
Thank you.